Hey guys, this is Jessica. Welcome back to my channel, The Retro Farmhouse. Today's project I'm working on, I was inspired by a lot of the barn quilts that they have. I don't know that that's really a southern thing. I think they have that more of a northern thing, like Ohio, maybe Kentucky. A few of them in West Virginia, but I wanted to recreate this to maybe decorate the side of my barn. And so this is also a project that if you don't have a barn, maybe you have just a little building or you have a she shed, or you can just make a smaller version of this to go in your house somewhere. But there's lots of different cool quilting patterns that you can do. If I can find some different links, I'll put some links below of just some ideas of some different patterns that are easier to more difficult, and really there's a lot of different varieties that you can do. So let's jump into today's project and I'll show you guys how I recreated this. So I'm going to start out here with these fence pickets. These are pressure treated, so they are really good to use outdoors, and I found that these were the most economically affordable option. Plywood is also a good option, but right now some of them are just a little bit more expensive than this option. And I'm also using this little, I guess it's like either a 1x or like maybe a 1/2x, just for the outer pieces to make a frame. So what I'm going to do first is I'm putting all of these together, and I'm just making this as square as possible. Anytime you're making any projects like this, you want to make it out of a square. So I'm just measuring here, and I'm going to just draw a line so I know where I need to cut these. If you're making one for indoors, most certainly you could do it with any type of smaller plywood pieces. A lot of the big box stores have those smaller pieces that are already cut that you can use. Next, I'm just taking some scrap pallet wood that I had, and I'm going to put those on the back side and just screw each one of the boards in. That way this stays together really well. And I'm also using some outdoor screws, that way it's not going to rust over time. All of the paint that I'm using on this piece is for outdoor use, so it's going to stay more vibrant for a longer period of time. So I'm just using a lighter kind of cream color for my background, and I applied about 2 coats onto it. Next, I stained my frame pieces in my favorite stain in Early American. There's a couple different brands that I use. It's basically whatever's available, but Early American is the one that I really like. Now this is not pressure treated wood, so I plan on adding some polyurethane or something like that onto this to protect this wood. Next, it's time for me to draw my pattern on here. Now the pattern that I really liked that I saw on Pinterest was one that was called the Appalachian Sunburst, I believe, and it looks more like a pinwheel. So basically whatever pattern you want to use, I find my center first and I mark that, and then I'm using my little paint can to mark my circle. And from there, I just try to figure out, mathematically wise, where each piece has to go to make sure that it encompasses my whole square here. The pattern I used was a little bit more, probably an intermediate pattern that I put on here. Again, there's a lot of other easier patterns to put. I'll try to find a link and I'll put that below to give some other ideas of some patterns that you can use. I took a piece of tissue paper and I traced that, and then some cardstock, and I made a little pattern piece that I could cut out, and then I could just place that all the way around and trace that. I ended up doing this for like my 4 spokes that go to each side, and that's what I started out with. And then for the rest of them that go through the other quarter pieces, I ended up making another pattern piece to go in those as well. Here you can see I made another pattern piece. This one's a little bit bigger, and I recommend, I do this for sewing, if you're ever making anything like this for patterns, tissue paper works good. I also buy the medical roll paper that they have off of Amazon. I use that a lot to make my sewing patterns with, and it's lasted me for a really, really long time. So now you see here, I'm just going to trace this out with my pencil here, and then I'll take my yardstick and create the lines through the middle. To start painting, I'm going to take my painter's tape here, and I had to really press this down a lot. It doesn't stick very, very well, but it sticks enough to these type of boards. I'm using some vibrant paint colors, and I'll list them below the type of paint ones I use. This one's, I believe, some type of pumpkin type color, and I always used outdoor paint. That way I made sure that these weren't going to fade, and I just kind of outline it with a little craft brush, and then I take a bigger brush to brush it in the middle. The next color I'm using is this really vibrant yellow. I think the colors I ended up picking that I felt like were kind of fallish were the oranges, the yellows, navies, and a little bit of the hunter green. If you're using an outdoor paint on this type of project, you shouldn't have to put anything over top of it to seal it. Next, I wanted to add my frame, so I'm just doing that overlapping technique that maybe you've seen other DIYers use before. So I'm just taking 2 of mine and butting those up against each other, and I'm just kind of cutting them one at a time. So I'm marking where that needs to be cut. I'm going to take that over to my saw, cut that, come back, do the next one, until I have that going all the way around. And then I'm just going to take my brad nailer and I'm going to nail that on and make sure that it's really secure. I love doing this project. I think I'll probably end up making 2 smaller versions of a different type of pattern to put on the other side of my barn. I just love the amount of pop of color it gives to the side of my barn. I ended up also getting some little fall mums that mimicked a lot of the colors, and I did a little flower bed in front of that as well. And I think it would be really neat to make ones for different types of seasons, like for Christmas and spring. Thank you guys for coming along today on today's project. Don't forget to check down below for our Instagram account. Come join me over there. I have a lot more ongoing projects or just things that are going on in the farm that I like to share there from day to day. And also don't forget to check out my Etsy account. I do have a little sale going on right now with some of my tea towels if you are interested in some of that. And stay tuned for some more DIYs next week. You guys have a great day.